On today's episode, pour yourself a big glass of blood and grab your suitcase full of bones, cause we're heading to Lovecraft country. We watched The Resurrected, today on Nothing Spookies.
Now, and you saw, what was the movie?
Final Destination? Believe me, we're going to talk about that. That's a key talking point that I want to bring
Too
up.
quick. The shot. I should have brought the picture.
I believe it's on your IMDb, but yeah, there's a YouTube series that I follow called Dead Meat that goes over movies, and there's a series called The Kill Count, and they go through horror movies and they rank all of the deaths. And they just recently did Final Destination Bloodlines. Usually the host of this is really great at spotlighting actors and mentioning their credits. So I did watch it to see if he brought you up. You didn't get brought up by name, but there is a small section of the behind the scenes where they do quote you, and you're talking about your life-size dummy of yourself. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Do you mean this photo?
Oh my God! Yes.
So wow, Bernard and Bernard.
Yeah, I mean, I went to FX, this amazing. Well, I call it a museum, but it's the effects place in Burnaby, off Willingdon and Burnaby, where and you walk in, and I said to the guy there, "There's no guy. It's his creation, and they used to be way out in Burnaby. Now they've moved into this called FX. I call it FX. But there's a young guy, Jesse. Wow, is he genius? But you walk in there, and there's this totem of dolls, and I go, and they said, "Oh, that's all the dead babies from Good Doctor," because they did all that.
They need that many? They can't reuse.
And there's no better way to store them than in like a totem formation.
What's the least creepy way we can display this?
Yeah. Oh no.
Welcome back to Nothing Spookies, where we go through the filmography of classic horror authors that have deeply problematic edges and choose the most anonymous and culturally untalked about movies that have been made out of their adaptations and decide whether or not they have a certain something or if they're just a lot of nothing. I'm Kaz Lesgard's great-great-grandfather who looks exactly like Kaz Lesgard and is currently controlling Kaz Lesgard's body.
And I've never read any Lovecraft, and I'm Jameson Rafter. You didn't clear this new direction for the show with me, but
no, because
we're here now.
No, because it's a third act reveal.
Of course,
you're not gonna know.
Yeah, and I would not be a good improv partner if I just like stopped it dead here in the track. Yes, and I do happen to notice that Jameson, you're wearing a big fake beard and dark sunglasses and a big fisherman's hat. Oh, okay. You're noting to the movie. No, this is all natural, buddy.
Yeah,
you're going for my Halloween costume.
This is a second act reveal. What's your Halloween costume this year?
You'll have to see to find out. I never spoil it.
Oh God! Now
you got to invite me to a Halloween party to see it.
Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what's on the books. I am turning 40 this year.
Yeah.
So I might have to.
You don't look it. You look fantastic.
Thanks. I feel like I'm 45 this morning. Today we are discussing 1991's The Resurrected. Why are we doing this? Well, as I mentioned,
content. We need to fill out
content. Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's more content
for the starving masses out there
for the internet pile. Now, as I mentioned on the last episode, if you listened to the last episode, good.
Thank you.
Good. You're doing it correctly. Everyone who's listening to this is their first episode. Wrong!
Welcome to the show. We don't normally cover Lovecraft movies.
We like to have like a theme for our Halloween episodes, or we have for the past couple of years where we've done our Halloween episodes. We've sort of had like a loose theme structure around them. And
horror icons, scream queens.
Yes. And this year, the idea that we had was let's do the Nothing movies of horror author adaptations. So we had sourced some movies that were adapted from Bram Stoker,
Stephen King,
Edgar Allan Poe, and we're going to keep those in our back pocket. We largely had to take the month of September off for personal reasons, so we didn't end up doing our classic 2 months of Halloween this time around. But I held on to today's movie, 1991's The Resurrected, which is based on a short novel by H.P. Lovecraft called The Strange Case of Charles Dexter Ward. And the reason I pushed really hard to do this movie was because we have an extra super duper special guest in studio with us today. And I say in studio because we are back in a recording studio for the first time in a very long time. We are renting out.
I showered for this.
I can, yes, I cannot smell you from here. Yes. No, we are at Compound Studios on Granville Street, and we are happy to be here, and we are happy to welcome our guest today, a somewhat of a white whale for this podcast, something I've long awaited to do, something I've always wanted to do ever since we started doing this podcast about 6 years. For the first time, our guest today is someone who is actually in the movie that we are discussing today. And he is an absolute legend of the Vancouver theater for over 50 years. He has 3 Jesse Richardson Awards. He has a star on the Granville Street Walk of Fame right outside the window. And he has inexplicably agreed to be a guest on this podcast. A lovely man that I had the privilege of sharing the stage with last year in a production of It's a Wonderful Life. You, listening, have most likely seen him. I'm hoping that you've seen him in this year's Final Destination Bloodline, where he deliciously gets squashed into a red paste by a falling elevator. Bernard Cuffling, thank you so much for joining us today.
Now, what an intro. What an intro. Actually, the one thing that shocked me, Cass, was the Resurrected was 1991?
Yeah.
Good God. Wow.
I'll be perfectly honest. I was debating whether or not I was even going to bring this up, but after I watched the movie, I had to rewind and I had to watch about 25 minutes of it because I'll be honest, Bernard, I didn't recognize you at first.
No, I didn't recognize you.
Who's that handsome young man?
Yeah, I mean now, because I thought was it around 2000, but no, you're right. It was way beyond that. 1991, and now, of course, I am old and I don't know. Well, I'm still going.
Yes,
of course.
But that was it my first horror movie? I can't remember.
Well, I have your IMDb open here. It looks like it's your first horror movie. It looks like it's your second film credit overall. You've had a fascinating career in film and television that I absolutely want to talk about because I've run down your IMDb and I found so many things that I wanted to ask you about. But going back to the beginning of your film career, much like the AV Club's random roles segment, I'll talk about like your first credit here. Your first movie appears to be 1987's The Little Match Girl.
Oh my God, for NBC, yeah.
With Rue McClanahan, William Daniels, Keisha Knight Pulliam, and John Rhys Davies.
Oh, wow.
You are uncredited in that movie on IMDb. Do you remember what your role was?
Oh yeah, I was the head butler of the house.
Couldn't possibly see you in that archetype at all. No, you don't.
I think I was called Bridges. I think that was the one. And we filmed it at the mansion on Davies Street.
Oh yes.
Which was a fabulous place to film it. Well, there were a couple of other places, but the house was on the mansion, the Davies Street, and then brilliant director. His name was Michael Lindsay Hogg, and I got the job, I think, having a mutual friend, an actress called Jean Marsh, who, bless her, passed away this year, but she had written a series in England called Upstairs, Downstairs.
Oh, of course.
And she knew Michael from whenever, and I couldn't believe that I'm getting this call that this guy wants to see you. because I wasn't originally there for an audition. My agent said, get down there, they want to see you. And this guy, and he said, hello, you're Bernard. And I said, yeah. He said, I'm Michael Lindsay Hogg. I went, whoa, because his claim to fame in the 60s was a show called Ready, Steady, Go in England, which was the first pop musical. The first pop, a Dick Clark thing.
So not scripted, but more like a chat show, but with
But introducing people, groups. This is before they became big. The Who, Rolling Stones, the Kinks, them. And when we did The Little Match Girl, what was so incredible on the set, there was 4 or 5 Rastafarians walking around. And one day, because it was early days for me in TV and movies, but I was being very polite, not talking to anyone except the right people, except to Michael, and saying, is this all right, blah, blah, blah. But I said to one of the Rastafarian guys, where do you live in Vancouver? He said, no, we come with Michael. He had just done Graceland for Paul Simon in Africa. So he had brought 4 of the Rastafarians that were in the band, the music.
Oh, as like special guests or as part of it?
Yeah.
Wow.
But not in the movie, just as friends.
Just to hang out.
Just to hang out.
That's really cool.
He had, amazing kudos, Michael Lindsay Hogg, well known in the US on Broadway. Is he still alive? I don't know. But I knew him as a great... Oh, and he had done 6 episodes of the original Brideshead Revisited with Jeremy Irons, which was one of the best things ever seen on television. So that's going way, way back.
Wow.
Yeah.
We can only hope to get a career so that your entourage just includes 4 random Rastafarians at one point in time. Yeah. All right. So moving on after that. So after that is The Resurrected, which I want to sort of come back to. There's a few more credits that I wanted to bring up here. So your next movie role after The Resurrected is a 1994 film with a fantastic title, The Man Who Wouldn't Die, with Roger Moore and Malcolm McDowell, directed by Bill Condon, an early film for him. He of course would go on to direct things like Gods and Monsters, and now he's a Disney live action man, and now he's stuck in that revolving door of fantastic content. But yeah,
well, I didn't know that he did Gods and Monsters, because that was McKellen, wasn't it? And Brendan Fraser. But with Roger Moore, I can't remember too much. I played somebody like from the English, we'll say MI6, which was the American equivalent.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I did know that Roger was one of the co-producers. And we got on like a house on fire. And there was one scene at a table when I was interrogating Roger, and he kept making me laugh. And I was being very disciplined, but he kept making me laugh. So we were on like the 6th take, and I said to the director and the AD, I said, I'm sorry about this. Maybe if I just go out and walk around for a bit. He said, no, don't worry. Roger's having a ball. He's enjoying himself.
So long as Roger's having...
And he was absolutely tremendous. But the thing, that marvelous thing about the movies where you have icons and you have, we'll say, megastars or whatever. When I went to wardrobe, they put a suit on me, and I said, well, I am supposed to be like an official, because in most of my scenes I'm interrogating Roger. And I said, this is Value Village. And they said, no, it's a suit. I said, well, what about that? And I pointed to a rail with 5 blue suits.
Well ironed, well tailored.
And I went over there, and I went, holy cow. And it was Jeeves and Hawkes, which is one of the greatest suit makers in Savile Row in London, and there were 5. And wardrobe was true. She said, they're Rogers. He has them specially made for the movie, and they've flown them out. I said, okay, so no Value Village for him.
No dressing better than James Bond. Not on this project. No.
But he was tremendous. But there was one thing, gossip. So
That's why we invited you.
Go on.
We want this Hollywood goss.
So this is what, reading through the lines. So I'd finished I was there I had about 6-day shoot, which isn't that big. But my agent phoned me and said, Bernard, don't do anything, go on. They may reshoot some scenes. And I said, oh, okay. He said, but it won't be for a month or two. So I waited and other things were happening. And then I phoned up my agent and said, did you hear any more about the Roger Moore thing? And they said, oh, they're not going to go ahead with it. And I went, oh, okay. And I said, any reason? They said, no, we don't know. But I found out that Roger had had some surgery done, cosmetic surgery, and so, which he didn't realize would make a huge difference. And it did. So he said, that's it, we're not going to reshoot.
Right.
Otherwise, I'd have had another fun time with him. But he was lovely. And Malcolm McDowell, I didn't work with per se, but there was one scene we did in Craig Darroch, the castle in Victoria. And I was at the bottom of the staircase, and Malcolm is at the top, and he screams down, and it was blood-curdling. It was amazing.
I mean, he's one of the great screamers. Yes, one of the everything I've heard. He's an absolutely lovely person, but he is an incredibly intimidating presence on any film. Yeah. Okay, so something I absolutely have to ask you about. A curio that I've never been able to track down, but I've always been aware. So you were in a Titanic miniseries that came out the year before the James Cameron film. So sort of like the underseen Titanic film.
The ember that started the fire.
Sure. And it has an incredible cast: George C. Scott, Peter Gallagher, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Ava Marie Saint, and Tim Curry. Now, I don't know if I've mentioned it on this podcast plenty of times.
Here we go.
I don't know if I've ever mentioned it to you. Tim Curry is my absolute favorite actor of all time. I have to know, did you ever get any on-set time with him?
I didn't get on set. I got makeup time.
Sure. Great time.
Kaz will take that.
I'll take it.
He was in the next chair. They were doing a scene later on that day, and I went in for touch-ups, actually. I'd been in there in the morning. And so, yeah, he was fascinated by that. He said, they flew you out from London. I said, no, I live here. He goes, oh, he said, what's the workload like here? I said, well, it's pretty good, you know. I get along all right. And I said, what about you? He said, I'm enjoying it here. He said, they're trying to do far too much in such a shorter time. And he was being very diplomatic about it because it was an absurd schedule they had. The director has passed away. I have to.
Robert Lieberman.
Yeah, I did not have a good time with him, and neither did Catherine.
First name basis, I see.
On the first name basis.
Well, but because you see, what it was her first North American. Now I'd seen her on a couple of TVs in England.
Yes.
A thing called Darling Buds of May or something, and she was stunningly beautiful.
Yes,
still is.
And in Britain, yeah, in Britain.
Because this is right before, I feel like her big movie was Mask of Zorro, and this is the year before that happened. So it's right before Catherine Zeta-Jones becomes a name.
So my story is she had, I didn't realize it, but he was, somebody did say to me one day, it's too big for him. He's used to commercials. This is too big for him. And with that star cast. But I did meet George C. Scott, who was tremendous. I mean, like those great actors, he was no attitude. There was no scream, scream, scream. We do the work. And,
Professional.
But there was a couple of, one day, we were doing a scene and a scene and a scene. I was head of the first class of the Titanic. And I heard Catherine walk over to the director. He didn't even talk to me, didn't even know my name. One of the producers I got on great with, but the director didn't care about me. And I heard Catherine go over to him and say, "Was that all right?" He goes, "Yeah, yeah." And she said, the accent, yeah. And this happened 3 times. So my last day of shooting, Peter Gallagher, and all my scenes were with Peter and Catherine. And Peter came up to me, and I think we were shooting up at UBC at one of the big places. And the Titanic is sinking. And there was 100-something extras, all smartly dressed. But I have to get Catherine and Peter from first class, get them off. And Peter came up to me, and I mean, he loved joking, I found out. And he said, "Bernard, your first shoot, these cheap bastards," he said, "Catherine and I are going to be down by the camera, and you're going to come down." And he said, "But they won't pay for," I can't remember the term, but they won't pay for listing. So the Titanic, we've got to act as though the Titanic.
It's like a lifter, yeah.
I said, "All right." And the director didn't like me. And whether you got the balls or not, you're intimidated. So the AD came up to me and said, "Do you know what you're going to do, Bernard?" I said, "Yeah, Peter just explained." So, "Okay, great." So quiet on the set. And you've got all these extras looking at me because I have to go down past it. And the camera is on Catherine and them. So I come down walking like Quasimodo, like that. Well, everyone fell about laughing. Peter is on the floor, and he peed himself laughing. The director stormed off the set, and I thought, "Oh my God." Mind you, it was my last day. But the producer who got on with me, and I got on with him, he came up to me and he said, "Bernard, that's just what we needed. Thank you so much." And I said, "That bastard Peter Gallagher had told me."
But just to cut the tension?
Well, I did it. I was so tense, but it looked so stupid because I'm walking with one shoulder up in the air and one.
Look, when you're falling down first class on the sinking Titanic, it's hard to look dignified. You know?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to even know how you would fall. But what happened? So that at the end of the day, the director did say, "That's Catherine Zeta-Jones rapped, and that's Peter Gallagher rapped," and Peter said, "And that's Bernard Cuffling rapped."
What a class act.
So he then said to me, he said, "You guys want to come back to my trailer and we'll have some champagne?" Because we'd finished our stuff. And Catherine said, "Oh, okay, I'll come. I won't stay long," because she was going to get a late flight to go back to Wales with her parents. And she said, the 3 of us in the trailer, he didn't care because he had just done Long Day's Journey into Night with Jack Lemmon on Broadway, Peter. It was very established. And Catherine said, she said, "Oh my God, I hope it's all right. I hope it's all right." I said, "Catherine," I said, "you are beautifully gorgeous. The camera can't take a bad picture." I said, "But you will meet this guy, this director one day, and just tell him what he is."
Yes.
And so about a year later, I got a postcard because we exchanged addresses. Peter said, "If you're in New York," I don't take people up on that. But I get a postcard from Catherine. She said, "Bless you for that confidence you gave me our last day, Bernard." She said, "I've just wrapped a movie with Anthony Hopkins and The Ghost of Zorro, and now the rest is history."
Absolutely. And now she's an Academy Award winner, and that director went on to direct the 3rd Mighty Ducks movie. So it all works out.
Well, I'd heard, and again, if she's alive, if you listen,
Yes, Catherine Zeta-Jones definitely listens to our podcast.
Right into Nothing Movies, care of Jameson Raptor.
Well, Mary Lou Henner, who played Unsinkable Molly Brown,
Yes.
she was married to the director. And I'm told that every time she came on the set, he was the most charming man.
Of course.
Polite to everyone.
Keeping up appearances.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's incredible. That's the best soundbite that I could have gotten out of the Titanic miniseries. All right.
And that includes a little bit with Tim Curry.
Just a little bit. In that, you know what? Sometimes the makeup chair is where you get some of the juiciest stuff. So, yeah. All right. So one of the things that delighted me when going through your filmography, Bernard, was the revelation that
I definitely grew up watching you on TV because you have so many credits of shows that I absolutely watched a ton out of when I was, an unsupervised youth. You're on an episode of The New Addams Family. You're on an episode of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the TV show. You have voiceover work for Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd Century. And Alienator's Evolution Continues. Do you remember the movie Evolution, Jameson?
Barely. That was sort of like an attempt to recapture the magic of like the premise of Ghostbusters, but it's aliens instead of ghosts.
Yes, from the director of Ghostbusters.
That's what it was.
And this is the cartoons, the new Ghostbusters cartoon spin-off of that show that Bernard apparently is on 17 episodes of.
Well, I did, was I on 17?
That's what
I did about 17 on Breaker High.
Yes. Well, this is the next thing that I need to bring up is I did not realize you were a main cast member on Breaker High. You were the chef.
I was the chef, and we couldn't say cordon bleu because of copyright. We had to say cordon rouge or something.
Really? I didn't know you could copyright food.
Yeah, no, you couldn't. I couldn't because
That's crazy.
I had lines like I came from the cordon bleu, but then they said no, we had to reshoot them because somebody.
Oh, cordon bleu,
the rival school. It's like
the method of not a piece of chicken with ham inside it,
yeah.
Which is what I think of when I think of cordon bleu.
I'm just thinking of like the rival school from across town.
But I mean, things like that are. I mean, what I loved about one day my trailer. Knock on the door, and it was Ryan.
Yes.
And I mean, he was. I think they called him the Goose because he was a beanpole. He was very tall but very thin.
Probably because all the ladies wanted to give him a goose too.
But then he went off to do Hercules or something.
Yes, and I remember this block of television growing up was almost the Ryan Gosling hour because I'm almost certain Young Hercules aired after Breaker High. So yeah, and then when he became a movie star, I feel like young Canadians had a beat on Ryan Gosling years before the rest of the world did. Because it's like, oh yeah, Breaker High. Yeah, absolutely. Like I know who that guy is.
Yeah, he's our star. Like we sent him out to the world to be the face for Canada.
Well, I used to do a project for a teacher in Surrey. I mean, a freebie, because I mean, when you're in the business, you're not in it for money. You don't make money. I don't make money. But people fascinate me. And there was this amazing teacher in Surrey, in Fleetwood, and he'd asked me to come along and talk about being an actor, primarily camera. And there had these cabins, long cabins, and the students there would there was a waiting list to get in for this session that I would do. I think I did about 4, and I would talk about TV or movie, and their project was to write as a reviewer a critique or whatever, and that was that. I know, but I would walk in the cabin. And the girls would go, oh, it's whatever my character was because of Ryan. And they'd seen Ryan in Hercules and he was making a name.
Can you introduce us to Ryan?
But the thing, one day he knocked on my door, the trailer, and I said, come in. And it was Ryan. He said, Bernard, can I talk to you? And I said, yeah. He said, I think it was Tyler, a local actor.
Yeah, Tyler Labine, another local.
Somebody had said to Ryan and said, or talk to Bernard because he knows theatre. So Ryan said, you've seen Olivier on stage. And I said, oh, yeah. He said, tell me about it. And so I told him. And I said to him, I said, so what are your heroes? Because Olivier is one of my heroes, of course. And he said, well, it's Chet Baker and James Dean. And when the series, the boys, there were 4 boys, 4 girls, they were making their money. And the girls, the wise girls invested. The boys bought cars, right? I think Tyler bought a Ralph Lauren Jeep or something. Anyway, so I said to Ryan, I said, well, what about you? He said, oh, mine's coming next week. It's being finished. I said, finished? He said, well, no. He said, I'll show you next week. And of course, what it was the replica of the James Dean Porsche.
Which I feel like a lot of young actors
they emulate, like the James Dean model. I don't know if I would go so far as to get a replica of the car that he famously died in. That feels like that feels like a Final Destination moment on its own, where you're sort of like flipping off the Grim Reaper at that point.
Well, no, he was quite pleased because they were his idols. Oh, and the other, Jim Morrison.
Sure,
Oh,
yeah.
Mm.
I also went through a Jim Morrison phase at that age, so yeah, that
good role models. All I'd say, yeah.
Exactly. Well, it worked out for him.
Yeah. So.
Wow. Okay, so you got a bunch of credits, but I definitely want to spend a chunk of time talking about Final Destination. And now, obviously, I know you. We are. Can I wager so much to say that we are friends? Oh, lovely. So
you made
obviously,
his day.
that was all I needed. That was why I invited you here. I just wanted to get that on the record.
You got two of them now, Cass.
But our who's the other? Oh, you.
Me.
Right, of course. Yeah. Well, now everyone knows. Yes.
Well, I think it's back down to one now.
No, you're contractually obligated to be my friend. Speaking of friends, our mutual friend and past guest on this podcast, Tristan Foy, and I went to see Final Destination together because we had heard during the run of It's a Wonderful Life that you were going to be in it. So we had been excited since that moment to go and check it out. And as a franchise, there had been a very big gap in between the last one, Final Destination 5, and this one, a changing of the guard of the filmmakers and everything. So I wouldn't say expectations were low, but they were fairly tempered. I'm not blowing smoke at all, Bernard, to tell you that Final Destination Bloodline, one of the best times I've had in a movie theater this year. It maybe is truly the best film of the franchise. It has no right to be as good as Final Destination 6 is, but it really is just an absolutely delightful time at the movies. There's so much Schadenfreude involved in watching these perfectly nice people meet horrible ends. You're one of the nastier people in the movie, but and you get one of the top 5 deaths, I would say, in the film, where you delightfully get crushed by a falling elevator. Yeah. And
I remember Alex Zahara, who's in the movie, and he said, "Oh, your death was much better than mine, Bernard. He was run over by the lawnmower." And I knew nothing about it, about Final Destinations. And the first time I really learned about it was my first day being driven to the studio. Was I driven to? Yeah, because the circus was not at the Bridge Studios. We shot at the Bridge Studios, and the circus was a ways up. And the driver driving me to the set said, "Oh God," he said, I hope they get it out this year. I can't wait." I said, "Oh, you know all about it?" He said, "Oh, I've seen them all." I said, "All what?" He said, "All the Final Destinations. It's one every 5 years." And whether that was deliberate, because I think they started in 2000.
Yeah.
So he was very excited, and everyone knew about it, except me, of course. But then that was sometimes works in your favor, because I was like Alice in Wonderland, because I had not worked in a movie with such what I call gimmicks. And I mean, young people today know, and I don't even know AI and all that.
Probably best to keep it that way.
Yeah,
it's very depressing.
Ignorance in a way is bliss. But so I would go, but the first day, I was sent, I got a call before I started shooting, 2 weeks before, to go to FX in Burnaby because they want to make a dummy of me. I went, what? So I went along there, and there was these young girls there, and they were photographing. Then they were photographing my hand for veins and everything. I mean, the long story short there was they were superb. It was as good as, if not better than, Madame Tussauds. So I saw it in pieces. And And when I got on the set, well, I'm about the fourth or fifth day, because I was only on for 4 or 5 days, but you do that in that time, you've got like 30 seconds, 45 seconds of celluloid. You're on the screen for 45 seconds, but it takes. So at the end of the shoot, and the place was on fire, smouldering now, and we're escaping. Zach, this brilliant director, who's actually from Vancouver, Zach said, "Bernard, your friends arrived." I went, "What?" He said, "Your friends arrived." And I turned around and I freaked out because they were holding they were holding me, life-size me. And I went, I literally, for 5 minutes, I had to go away and sit down because it's so bizarre.
Very surreal to see yourself mangled. Yeah.
Now, when I saw the finished article, the only thing that I thought, I thought they did the death too quick. It was too sudden, because Zach had explained to me, and they said, "Bernard, what we're going to do, you get to the glass elevator, and we'll put you in a position that it's coming down on you." So they just wanted my reaction, And they said, "And then we'll cut." And so I would be in a pose, but holding on for dear life, but seeing this ceiling cut, and the extras that in the elevator wouldn't let me in. So I'm fighting the busboy and everything. And then they go cut and tape. So they took me out, and then I think his name was Jesse, one of the young assistants at FX. They're dressed as ninjas. Again, I understand blue screen and green screen, but these were like dressed as ninjas, all in plastic. They were in yellow. And there were two girls and him with these poles. And I said, "Jesse," I said, what are you going to do with those poles?" Because they were now getting my wax model in place. And they said, "Well, we organize it. I'll do your arm, and she's going to do your other arm." I said, "Don't tell me. She's going to do my ass." And they said, "Well, it's sort of that area."
And we're going to puppet.
Yeah, so these ninjas become the puppeteers with these poles, and so they take the hand and then they wait, and then they say, "Shoot, rolling again." So I'd like to see it again, just to see now the after effect, see how it does work with the dummy. But it was all too quick for me to.
But now, anytime I rewatch that, I'm gonna be subconsciously thinking about yellow invisible ninjas who are holding you up with sticks and moving you around. But it's fascinating what they have to do to achieve. Yeah, what ultimately ends up being about 2 seconds of screen time. But the end result, I think, is fantastic. And yeah, it would have been nice if they could have tormented you a little bit more.
I would like to have had a longer crush, longer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Elevators do fall very quickly, though, so you are working with gravity.
Yeah. But there was one wonderful thing. There was a producer. I think he was a producer. I mean, I can't remember all the names, but they knew my name. But anyway, this guy, really nice guy. He took me away for a photograph of something else. I don't know where they used it. It was something 10 years later, and it was a picture and a photograph. But anyway, the day I came in, my death day, this guy came up to, I think his name was John, big guy, and he said, "Bernard, it's a pity you weren't in yesterday. You would have had a ball." I said, "Well, it was all stunts, wasn't it?" He said, "I know." He said, "If I'd have known, I mean, we could have squeezed you in if you wanted." And I said, "Well, because the set is now on mostly, well, it's simmering, but it was on fire." And so he said to me, "I want to show you the rushes for this." So he puts his screen up. And he said, "Look at this." And there is this old woman.
Yes, I've heard about this.
Running, I think I may have told you last year, running towards the camera. And she's on fire. And before she gets to the camera, a ball of fire covers her. And I was frozen in my seat going, "Dear God." He said, "Great." He said, "It's worked, doesn't it?" I said, "Are you serious?" He said, "Well, I've just been on the phone to Guinness Book of Records."
Yes.
And they're going to print it this year. the first time, the stunt woman, I think he said, was 73, had been in the business for 50 years. And this is the oldest person ever to do a stunt of full cover of fire.
Wow. Yeah. I read one interview where she said she comes from a family of stunt performers, and everyone in her family has been set on fire except for her. So this was a real bucket list moment for her where she was able to do it. And now she has the world record. So yeah.
How about that? Yeah.
An incredible
good family
story.
legacy.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what I think is the amazing thing about movies today, in action movies. I don't know whether Bloodlines is called action or horror.
There's definitely some action in there.
I mean, at the end, that has to be A1 with the train and whatever.
Oh, yes, of course, yes.
And it suddenly got crazy. And Gay Rose, bless her, local actress, good friend of mine, I think her head got blown off. I think they'd done that trick before.
Terrific, Frank. Great person.
But I had a great deal. And what was wonderful, I always asked questions. Not to be a pain, but to know. So many actors don't bother to ask, just learn their lines or whatever. And I said to Zach one day, I said, Zach, and I have vertigo to a certain extent, but I went to the edge of the set, which was, because it was a wraparound restaurant. And I don't know the shot that they did, but anyway, for us, whether it's for continuity, there was Burrard Bridge and a lot of, and I said, Zach, they've got Burrard Bridge, but he said, Bernard, go downstairs and talk to blah, blah, blah. So I go downstairs, and there's this guy with about 8 assistants and computers and everything. And I said, I'm looking at Burrard Bridge, but I don't recognize, where did you shoot that here? He said, no, Bernard, we didn't. He said, and I gather this guy, they brought him in from Germany. He's like top notch. He said, that's a part of Seattle. And then we're going to Portland. And then we're going to New York. And then we're going to Europe. I said, oh. I said, so, he said, so that audience go, oh, that's Vancouver. Oh, no, it can't be Vancouver. And he said, and we just did it. And I said, and there was a plane that flew by at one point. Or was it mine? He said, no. He called to a young girl, and she pressed a button, and there was a little blob up in the corner, and it stopped being a blob, and it became an aircraft flying past. And she did that with a flight of snow geese as well.
So this was in the studio, and this is this big projection wall that they have now that they use to film like the Star Wars shows and everything. Yeah, the digital backgrounds. Yeah.
And to me, I was like Alice in Wonderland, because I don't understand this.
Well, I'll tell you, if they wanted to disguise the fact that the movie was shot in Vancouver, they didn't do a great job, because of course the opening scene takes place outside of the Science Museum that then pans up to a giant revolving restaurant that famously is not there. But that was part of the joy that I had with watching Final Destination, was recognizing all of the places
what
that
they
I've
repurposed
been.
the library for or whatever. Yeah.
I think this is the rare Vancouver film that doesn't bother using our Colosseum-esque library.
Or the mining museum.
But really fantastic.
Well, I now, because that's what they can do.
Yes.
You see, that's what they can do. It's incredible. I mean, when I did a movie called, which was produced by Christian Habler, I think her name is, Hector and His Search for Happiness.
Yes, with Simon Pegg.
With Simon Pegg. What a lovely... I didn't know Simon Pegg.
Sure.
And we got on great. And again, they had to cut, because the director, a Brit who lives in LA, I can't remember names, but we got on terrific. And when we had a preview at the Fifth Avenue, he said to me, he said, Bernard, you're going to hate me. He said, I had to cut that scene with... I mean, no. He said, I had to, because we do references to Tintin, the cartoon character, the French.
We didn't get the rights.
We didn't have the rights. Yeah. So this whole street, and he kept saying to me, the lovely director, he said, Bernard, you and Simon do some improv and that. He said, use Tintin. He said, but we're hoping, but they didn't get it. But what I was going to say about that, I was in makeup with Simon one day, And I walk in, and he's already been before me, and he's talking to somebody on the laptop thing. And I said, who are you talking to? He said, oh, hang on, say hi to Bernard. And I said, hello? And she said, oh, hi, Bernard. She said, sorry, I'm not working with you. I'd love to. Simon's told me about you. And I said, well, where are you? That's the Houses of Parliament. She said, oh, yeah, I'm shooting a TV here. And it was Rosamund Pike,
Yes.
who's a super actress. So, you know, you could say, oh, I was in a movie with Rosamund Pike. Well, I wasn't. I was in makeup, and she was on the laptop, but she was in that.
Sure, and Christopher Plummer.
Oh,
I
I met Christopher Plummer at Christine, the producer, lived in West Van, and I was called to a cocktail party before we started shooting, and that's where I met Simon, and we chatted. But Christopher Plummer was there, and again the politeness of the man, because he was very old. And I said, Mr. Plummer, I don't want to be gushing, but you've done so much amazing work. I said, for us Canadians, I said, don't let my accent fool you. Yes, I was born in England, but I've been here 50 or 60 years. I said, but I want to thank you, and I won't keep you saying that's very sweet of you. He said, well, let's have a great run with this. He said, we don't get to work, do we, though? I said, no, I'm at the beginning, you're at the end. He said, I know. He said, but I'll see you. I said, I'll see you. And he was super in it. And I didn't have any when we did that, but he was very old then. But like Roger Moore, polite, charming, no attitude.
Can you say who, apart from the director of Titanic, do you feel comfortable talking about maybe like the biggest son of a bitch you've ever had?
Elliot Gould.
Elliot Gould.
You heard it here first, folks.
What was that on? What was that like?
Well, it was a stage play. Now, had he done the play before? It was a terrible play in one respect. It was like, you know, Kelly Ripa and her husband, that morning show.
Okay.
All right, so this was based on a thing in the 50s, Dorothy Kilgallen or somebody. But so this was Les and Bess, Breakfast with Les and Bess, the play. Probably the playwright had one hit on Broadway then, never did it anywhere else. Anyway, Elliot came to it, and he was fine the first few days, and then he started screwing up. And we're rehearsing, and I said, no, Elliot, I think you should go and sit in the chair there. It's much stronger. He says, no, I won't. I'm going to go there. I said, okay. So he called me one night, and we were staying in the same hotel in Edmonton. And so I went into his suite, and he didn't make much sense. He just said, I think you're doing a good job, but I think you've got it wrong. I said, well, I don't think so. I said, just go with me on it. It's not, you know, the greatest writing. He said, well, I'll think about it, but all right, okay. So the next morning, he arrives, and he said, I've thought about it, and you are totally wrong. I said, am I? I've talked to my friends, and your friends. And I do have friends in Edmonton.
Yes.
But I thought...
We're in a group chat.
Yeah, I thought, you've talked to... I said, we talked last night. He said, yes, but I've talked to them since. I said, okay, then. And I thought, well, I'll find out who these bastards are.
Yeah, these backstabbers.
I said, you tell me. And he said, are you serious? I said, yes. I'll call them up. He said, they're friends of... I said, yes. He goes, all right. Margaret Thatcher and Elizabeth I. I kid you not. I knew I was dealing with loop-de-loop. Now, on the serious side, a few days later, I get a call from Howard, who passed away this year, a lovely man, who owns the stage rest. But Howard said, Bernard, we've got to end it there for you. He said, we'll pay you, don't worry, but Elliot won't go on stage if you're still involved. I said, fine. I mean, I was breathing a sigh of relief, but I don't want to do anything unfinished. As you're a professional, you don't do that. And there was a lovely girl who was an ASM, and I said to her, just talk to her, no one else. I said, I will pay you if you will come in at 6 o'clock in the morning, because we were coming up to Tech Week, which was just doing sound and lights. I said, come in at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we'll do the sound and lights. I will do them. I know how to operate them because they're fairly basic. I said, because you heard? She said, yeah, we heard. She said, of course I'll come in. And there was an actress in the play who was very supportive of me. So we set it up, and they did the show, and Howard closed the show, I think 2 weeks later, because Elliot had attacked everyone in the show, including his 18-year-old son.
With Barbara Streisand?
Not the Barbara Streisand.
Oh, the other one.
No.
Oh, okay. Still though, don't, leave your kids alone.
Yeah.
Wow.
But Sam said to me, he said, Bernard, I don't know how you're dealing with my dad because I've just moved in with him, but as soon as we get back to LA, I'm out.
And then it was just a contentious run of the play where he just didn't talk to anybody, or?
He was just impossible. Or he would do a scene, this is before he fired me and everything, and before we had the conversation where he'd spoken to Margaret Thatcher and Elizabeth I. He would do a scene and it would be as perfect as it could be, because he is like a Jack Lemmon. He was like a Jack Lemmon. And I'd say, that is absolutely it, Elliot. That's exactly what we want from this scene. So when we do it again, he'd screw it up. So he was on a collision course. But there's always retribution. And it really affected me. And still to this day, it's the worst thing of my life. But Walter Learning, bless him, Walter Learning ran the Playhouse Theatres. And 6 months later, Walter called me and said, come to lunch. I've got to make you feel good. And I went, what? Because the story had got around certain my colleagues in Vancouver about it. I didn't say too much about the experience because it was shattering. You're fired and you feel the loneliest person in the world. Anyway, so Walter called me around and I said, what's it? He said, I heard about your Elliot. I go, oh, God. He said, no, I just found out he'd signed an American tour of the stage play. It would come to be Deadlock, but it was with Mary Lou Hartley and one other. And they've been doing it for about 2 or 3 months. And he's got a movie part that was offered him. So he's told the management of Death Trap, told the management of the American tour of Death Trap, he wants out. And they said, yeah, you can have out, but you pay 9 months of salary. Mm-hmm. So they had got him. And I said, thank you, God. Yes. There is someone up there.
That's a lovely cherry.
But he was, I put it down, and you always try and make excuses. I put it down to, he was how the business can destroy you. Because if you remember, he made his name in
MASH.
In Catch 22 with Donald Sutherland. Mm-hmm. Donald Sutherland went way up.
Yeah.
He married on Broadway in their younger days. He was doing I Can Get It For You Wholesale. He married a young Barbara Streisand. Yeah. Look where her career went.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then he never got MASH. He was never offered it. And that was the most successful television program. I think all he did, Robert Altman was his director.
Yes.
And would use him all the time. But you knew that he would never.
He never had like the stratospheric rise. It was everyone else that around him seemed to branch off and find that huge success. And it's not that he wasn't working steadily, but it's just that everyone else around in his orbit, it just got so much bigger.
Well, I went to see a movie with my friend David Lewis, who's an actor in town, and David had seen it before, but I wanted to see it. He said, right, don't look. I said, well, he said, don't look. And Elliot Gould was in it because it was Ocean's 12.
Yes.
Ocean's 11, 12, 13. They use him all the time.
Yeah.
But you see, when you take someone like Elliot Gould away from the studios and Hollywood, and you put them in a stage play, be it in Toronto or a stage play in Alberta, they go to pieces. Mm. It's like the wasps on the honeypot. You don't leave Hollywood. Mm-hmm. Don't leave Hollywood.
Yeah. There's like an organization around there that kind of keeps him in check. Whereas if he goes into like, say, like a smaller production for a stage, it sounds a lot like he's too big of a fish for this pond. Yeah.
And a classic example, and it wasn't always stage rest. They don't have the stars anymore. But I worked with Jeff Conaway
from Greece. Yes.
Who had done Taxi.
Right.
We're doing another stage rest, a very funny play, and they needed the taxi driver. So they phoned Hollywood. They said, we need an American name. And we got Jeff Conaway because he was in Taxi. Well, he was another, but he was a charmer. He was a sweetheart the first few days. I wasn't directing. I was just in it. But of course, once we opened, the director, who couldn't direct his way out of a paper bag, went back to Toronto, and I had to take over. And Jeff was losing a big laugh, but he wasn't losing a big laugh. It was four of us helped get the big laugh. But we were breaking up because it was so funny, but it wasn't him being funny, it was something else. Now, his wife, who is estranged from Rona, was in the audience, and I got on great with her, and she came up to me after, she said, Bernard, that breakup, she said, it's not really working. I said, it's so unprofessional, I'm sorry. She said, no, it works for you guys, the audience at the front, but we're in the back row. She said, I was in the back row tonight, and we didn't know what you were laughing at. I said, okay. So I went into the dressing rooms and said, I know it's not my position to say this, I'm not the director, but that breakup, and I said to Russell, I said to Malcolm and Jeff, I said, no breakup. No breakup. So we didn't. So he wasn't getting his laugh. So whatever he was taking before he came on stage, I don't know. But he finished up one night crying on stage and trying to strangle this actress. So I said to Howard, it was in San Diego, I said, I'm not going on stage with this man. He said, please. I said, no. He said, Bernard, just get through tonight and we'll plan it. So I said, okay. So we got through that night. And I got Billy Christopher from MASH. We phoned his agent, said, is Billy Christopher available? Can you fly him up to Edmonton? We're going to go down to Calgary with this show. So Billy Christopher took over, and he was fabulous. But Jeff, as I say, was a charmer. He was Greece, and you look what happened to Olivia Newton-John, and you look what happened to Travolta, and not Jeff Conaway. And now Jeff was married to Rona Anderson. They had a son. They'd got divorced. She came back, and she said to me one night, when he'd thrown her out of the hotel room, because security phoned me up in my room, said, Bernard, can you help us?
Security called you for backup.
They said, Mrs. Conaway, she's in the lobby, and she's half-dressed, she's thrown her. I said, okay, live with me. So I go downstairs. I take her into one of the bars, restaurants, where it has a huge complex. And blah, 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 blah. The long story short, she said, Bernard, I'm only here because our son is 14 and he needs some parents. And I can't leave him with Jeff. It's important for me also to live there. And she said, and I said, well, how do you guys survive in Hollywood? She said, well, we don't. She said, I'm an actor. I said, I didn't know you were an actress. She said, no. She said, I'm introduced in Hollywood as Jeff Conaway's wife or Olivia Newton-John's sister. She said, my name is Rona Anderson. No one knows.
Oh, wow.
And she said, it's a snake pit down there. And I think, and that was Jeff, because he finished, he was on one of those reality things about rehab with Gary Busey and them.
He had I remember reading about him. He had a bit of a tortured life, and he got quite sick and then passed away, I remember. Yeah. But yeah, that is quite sad. And yeah, and of course the thing about the film version of Grease, the famous song Greased Lightning, Jeff Conaway's character in the play is meant to sing that. That's meant to be Kenickie. That's meant to be Kenicky's song. But of course, John Travolta's strong-armed in there, and he's all like, "No, I'm going to sing this too." And that's who sings it in the play. So I have to imagine. I mean, I'm only speculating here, but I have to imagine, because as it stands, he's like the fourth lead of Grease, but he just doesn't have as much to do as everyone else does, and that's because Travolta snatched his big number, So I don't know if that contributed to anything, but it is a snake pit, as you say.
It's that amazing world. Wow. You know, but
well, speaking of pits, I imagine we could pick your brain for hours and hours. You've worked with some absolutely incredible people, and I'm sure you have stories for days. But we should probably seg over into talking about today's film, The Resurrected. What we will
resurrecting.
We're resurrecting the discussion on the film that we're talking about. We'll just take a little break so you at home can stretch your leg. I don't know how podcasting works, but we gotta stick to the formula that we have here. So we'll take a little break here, and when we come back, we'll be back. We're not going anywhere.
No.
If anything, we're just going to continue recording from here. But the illusion will make it seem like time has passed.
We're taking a break. Yeah, in your mind, we're taking a break.
All right. Talk to you in a minute.
Get an angry letter from his people.
I watched this this terrible Netflix movie called You People. Jonah Hill and Eddie Murphy, and Jonah Hill wants to marry Eddie Murphy's daughter, and it's all like Jewish families and Black Muslim families. Comedy ensues, and Elliot Gould is in that movie for literally 5 seconds. He's just someone that Jonah Hill meets at a synagogue. He gets single card billing in the credits. So he's still pulling. I have to imagine it was a bigger role that got cut out of the movie because the movie is edited to shit. But his people still were able to engineer no one else's name on screen, just the single card Elliot Gould in the credits for 5 seconds of screen time.
did a TV, or he's still doing a TV?
He's still around. He's still popping up. You know, but anyway, probably get off that train before it gets incredibly litigious. All right, so 1991's...
Are we recording again?
The Resurrected.
Okay, great.
We are. It is the second and final directorial effort from Dan O'Bannon, who is a fascinating figure. His only other movie credit is, honest to God, one of my favorite horror movies, point blank, The Return of the Living Dead. A fantastic zombie movie, a movie that many people credit as the first time in popular culture that zombies stumbled around saying brains. That was the one that introduced that into the zombie lexicon. It's a very punk rock movie. But of course, probably his most famous credit is he's the co-writer of Ridley Scott's Alien. And as a result, he gets a credit on every Alien spin-off video game, TV cartoon, everything. He is credited with Alien, but he also worked on Total Recall. He co-wrote John Carpenter's first movie, Dark Star. He actually is in that movie as one of the 4 leads. He's a fascinating figure through Hollywood, and you were saying off Mike Bernard that he was another lovely person to work with.
What was fascinating about him was, I would have said he was a first take. Or he would say, "Oh, we're going to rehearse this," and then he'd go, "Right, and print that." And I realized, wow. And it started, it was a very strange thing. We were shooting out at Riverview,
which is the famous old
mental hospital.
Mental hospital. I was about to say insane asylum, but that's not politically correct anymore. Yes, but mental hospital that gets all of basically like so many film and TV shows in Vancouver utilize it.
It's gothic and it's way up on the hill, and it was the building way up on the hill. And I remember 91. Wow, my memory may not be that bad. I was driving there, raining, and torrential November rain, Vancouver, and I went way past the stop, but I saw public library, so it must have been what Chilliwack. So I get to the library and I said to this person at the library, "I'm supposed to be shooting a movie at Riverview."
This is the setup to like a lot of other horror movies.
You're not unlike the main character in The Resurrected, where you're driving up to and the lady at the library said, just open your window. The smell will guide you there. The smell of death.
She said, "You've got to go back. It's about a quarter of a mile down the highway." All right, fine. So I go. So I see a light up high, and I go, oh, well, this must be, and there's a turn off. So I drive up this sort of huge, steep hill.
Winding hill, and wolves howling in the back.
And I see this one light. So I drive to the one light, and there's no one around. And I'm looking towards the right. My engine, thank God, was still running. Looking towards the right when there's a knock on the window, and I turn, and this guy's saying, "Are you an actor? Come here, I want to."
Holding up one lantern, he's got a cloak on. Are you an actor?
Well, yeah, because I would have said when I recovered,
follow me.
What was it? That was exactly the experience. So my little car reverses down the hill, and the main entrance was about 50 yards further on. So I get there absolutely shaken up. And Dan, he wasn't a terribly tall man, comes up to me and said, "Oh, how are you?" I said, "Oh, I told him this story." He said, "Oh, good." I said, "Never mind about good." I said, "I'm just nervous wreck." He said, "Well, okay, well, go to wardrobe and makeup." And it was cold and bleak there. And we did a shot, and I don't know, I think it is in the movie. The first shot, he said, "Bernard, I'm rearranging the shooting today. It was going to be an office scene. We'll do that. I want you just to walk along the corridor." And he said, there will be lights coming in because it's the storm and the curtains.
Which I believe is one of the first scenes in the movie.
Is it one?
Yeah.
Well, because so I'm walking along. Now I'm sure they did cut it because I saw that when you showed it to me, or you told me to see it the other night. But the first take, I'm walking along, and suddenly the rain comes in the window, the curtain goes, and the lights go, and I literally screamed. I think psychologically I was keyed up for it, and I carried on, and there was another one. And he goes, "And cut and print that." I said, "But you told me we were rehearsing." So he seemed to like that. So then he would say things. But now, one thing I didn't notice, because we did about 6 takes, but the take I would have loved was there's a scene where I go into the padded cell, and the orderly, I believe that, is it Charles, the guy?
Chris Sarandon.
Chris Sarandon,
yes.
who was an amazing actor. He's in the corner, and I can't see his head or anything, but I see his shoulders and the back, and he's all in white. And they built a grid for me because the floor was covered in blood. And so I walked on this grid, and I'm walking on, and I go, and I stopped when I get to what was Chris Sarandon, but it wasn't. It was an orderly. I didn't know this. And I'm at distance. I'm about 2 feet away, and I'd say, "For God's sake, what happened? What were you doing?" And I say, "Pull yourself together." And as I say, "Pull yourself together," I grab his shoulder. Well, he had no head, but they had a pump and all this blood.
No, that scene is not in the movie, but
and all this blood hits the ceiling.
You got all this fake blood pumped in your face for nothing now.
Dan O'Bannon goes, "And cut and print that." I go, "What?"
So he was a bit of a prankster.
What the hell did I sign up for?
Because it was so freaky there. And so the second day, and then the rest was office things. So the second day we go, and I'd said to him, I said, "No more, none of your tricks. You tell me if it's printable." Yeah. He said to me, "There's one of the security guys. He works here during the day as well. He's from Riverview, and he said he'll show us the upstairs." He said, I said, "Well, wait till Bernard comes. If Bernard comes, and we'll go upstairs." I went, "Well." So he took us upstairs, and truly horrific. What it was, and Riverview, for the people that don't know, is now more or less obsolete. I mean, it's ye old Victorian.
Yeah.
But upstairs was the room that the security guy took us into. It's white tiles, but there were handcuffs coming out of the wall, and evidently they would lock the patient,
But they would shackle them.
and shackle them, and then they would hose them down.
God.
And in another room, there were these unbelievable screams, not like the famous Munch scream, but like the face with the neck pulled away and the torture on the face. And there was a whole series on this wall. They may still be there because we found out that the guy was telling us, the security said it was done by a French Canadian from Montreal, came to Vancouver, and he was schizophrenic, and he spent most of his life in Riverview, and they would let him paint as therapy or whatever, and he would paint these horrendous.
It's almost like something you would see in a hokey sanitarium movie, but like it actually happened and it was there while you were filming. I mean, because Riverview is used for so many different locales. The one time I filmed something there, I was an extra in a Bollywood movie, and it was made up to look like a police station. You must have been one of the rare times where you actually were using it as a sanitarium for the thing that it actually was.
Yeah, it was. It sounds like it was like caught in that transitional period where like it was still like not somewhat in operation, but like it was sort of in that transitional period.
Not the section we were, whether they were moving out of the section, but it wasn't absolutely closed.
But the reality sounds much more terrifying than any movie you could have.
Well,
made.
that's what I realized about Dan Bannon.
Yeah.
That's because what Dan had done, he had done the work for me. I was not a nervous wreck, but I was like, Christ, this place, I can't wait to get in my car and get home and have a drink. Yeah. You know.
Anything.
He did. That's how he sort of worked. Now, was it Michael Sarandon?
Chris Sarandon.
Chris Sarandon.
Who is a bit of a quiet horror icon in himself. He's, of course, an Oscar nominee for Dog Day Afternoon, for one of the first depictions of a trans person in cinema. But for the horror world, you know, he plays the lead vampire in Fright Night. He plays the hero detective in Child's Play. And of course, most importantly, he's the voice of Jack Skellington in The Nightmare Before Christmas. So yeah, he has one foot in the horror world, certainly. Yeah, and definitely in terms of this movie, he's the most well-known actor, I would say, in it. He's the big name.
No offense.
No offense for his second movie. Yeah.
Again, there was a scene, but I don't know. They didn't have it in the finished product. So the first rehearsal, we go in. There was a nurse there, or my assistant and me, and Chris was in the bed.
Yeah.
And he's got a straitjacket. And Dan introduced me to him. And
while he was wearing the straitjacket,
you go to shake his head like, oh, sorry. Yeah.
He said to me, I won't talk to you now if that's okay. Can I talk to you after the shot? I said, certainly. And again, it was the way Chris worked as an actor, because the scene was, I walk around the bed and I'm lecturing him. I said, and you're here because of this, and you can't do that, and that won't happen anymore, and I'm had blah, blah, blah. And at the end of it, and he's looking down in the bed, and I say, for Christ's sake, would you just look at me? I'm talking to you. And he looked at me, and I went, oh, because the look in his face, I had never seen him as an actor. I don't think I've seen him since. But he had this frightening look. And the reason he didn't want conversation. No, we're going to do this thing like this.
He wanted to save that reaction.
Yeah.
And he kept his head down.
And he's playing a possessed person who has done all of these horrible Lovecraftian things. And he
really was. Yes. He really was. I mean,
he has fake teeth, or he has something smeared on his teeth, so they're all gray and nasty and that. So, yeah.
So it was... it was a strange thing, a movie to do where I was effing scared.
Sure.
Yeah.
But you brought that into the character. And well, yeah, because your character, Dr. Waite, of course, is the sort of officious...
man of logic and science.
Yes, absolutely, yes. But behind the eyes, Bernard, clearly you're
There are some things that
boots.
medical science just can't explain.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I was very impressed with him. And then the strange thing, it was fun to do. Oh, but there was one, apropos to that, one night, everything about it was sleazy.
Oh, okay.
No, this is in the, maybe that's the wrong word, but the food, the not the craft services, but they do a meal for you, right? And the guy who was the chef, the cook, he looked like an ex-convict, right? And the food was, anyway, Dan said to me, they were setting up another scene or something, and I'm like this because I need whatever we'd done the blood scene in the pad itself. And he said, well, there'll be food soon.
You worked up an appetite.
So the AD said, we're ready to break. Let's set up after dinner. Dan, we're ready to break, you and Bernard. So Dan said, come on, let's go. So we go to the front of the line. And this guy, the cook, says, oh, this is too soon for me. It won't be ready. And so when the AD said, well, you were given notice. He said, okay. And he opened this, was like a toaster rack. He opened it, and there were half a dozen almost raw chickens that he was baking.
Yeah, maybe give that a little more time. Sure.
And Dan looked at me and said something about, I think it's this effing movie we're doing or something. Anyway, the ADs took us away and said, we'll get you something. And I think, get phoned in somewhere in Chilliwack, and we had pizza. But the chickens, and I thought, my God, it's one thing after another.
Sure. I mean, that carries over into the movie itself. There's a scene, short, I think midway through, where our main character, detective character, has just seen a mutilated corpse, and he goes to get a hot dog. He ends up not getting the hot dog because, pointedly, the hot dogs look horrifying.
There's like green mold.
Yeah, they're all
on
gray and like, yeah. So yeah, it's a movie that is filled with gross stuff. It's a singularly gross movie. Hard to find an H.P. Lovecraft adaptation that doesn't involve
the cheery Lovecraftian movies.
Some goop definitely involved. He's a very goopy writer. But I'm not surprised to hear, Bernard, that you were involved in scenes that didn't make it into the final cut of the movie, because one of the things I found out about the production of this film is that it was severely edited and sort of taken away from Dan O'Bannon. Much more like his first film, Return of the Living Dead, which is almost more of a horror comedy. He wanted to make this movie a lot more funny. He wanted to add a lot more moments of levity. Having just watched the film last night, I can tell you, not a lot of laughs in here. It takes itself incredibly seriously.
I'm hard pressed to think of any opportunities where you could work in a few chuckles.
But, you know, this film had a somewhat tortured editing process. It was Dan O'Bannon wrote one screenplay, and the credited screenwriter of the film, a gentleman named Brett Friedman, wrote another version, and they sort of mushed the two of them together. Friedman's version of the script was originally titled, and this really should have been the title they should have gone for, Shatterbrain.
Shatterbrain?
Which is pretty. Let me tell you, if they called this movie Shatterbrain, a lot more people would be talking about it today, I have to say.
I think it looked better on a poster.
Was it originally the case of Charles Dexter Ward?
So the case of Charles Dexter Ward is the Lovecraft story that this is based on. The main difference, apart from this version being set in modern day and the Lovecraft story being set when Lovecraft wrote it, apart from it being a detective story, the main character who sort of uncovers everything going on with Charles Dexter Ward isn't a detective, he's their family doctor. So I think what Dan O'Bannon or Brett Friedman added in is they added in sort of like this Shaggy Dog detective story here. Dan O'Bannon's version was called The Ancestor. And both of these titles got thrown out for The Resurrected, which, no offense, a pretty generic title for your movie.
Well, that's why I never saw it, because I didn't know it was called.
Well, it says that it originally was shown at the Sitges Film Festival in Catalina, Spain. Sitges, thank you.
I've been there.
Hey, well, there you go.
Yeah.
And then it was given a short-lived theatrical release in June of 1991, and then dumped on home video in 1992. So you probably didn't see it because it barely got released. And Dan O'Bannon, to his credit, never directed another movie. So possibly the experience of working with the producers on this might have soured him on the experience.
I'm done with this.
Hey, he just continued to make Alien residuals for the entire rest of his career. The man didn't need to work anymore. All right, so the plot. Let us go through the broad strokes of this plot. So Yeah, I mean, the film opens with the scene that you described, Bernard, where your character, Dr. Waite, goes to the room of Charles Dexter Ward, who is his patient at the sanitarium, and it appears that he has escaped. His window has been smashed open. There's bed sheets tied together. There's a dead orderly on the floor and a big pile of dust everywhere.
A massive, like a splattered blood effect of just like covering half the room.
So when do they go back then to Chris Sarandon?
It's a bit of a wraparound story.
Yeah, the movie begins sort of like near where it ends, because it does cut to our detective character, John March, who's dictating sort of the events, the last, however long this was, the last 72 hours.
A bit of a bet you're wondering how I got in this situation.
Sure.
That old chestnut here, yes.
Yeah. So as he's retelling the story, it flashes back to like a week earlier, where there is this woman Claire who solicits his services for a case involving her husband, who's just acting notoriously strange. Like, this is like very out of character for him.
He's some sort of scientist, and he recently found out he did a 23andMe, and he found out about his family lineage. And ever since he found out about his family lineage, he has been conducting devious experiments in their carriage house. And she said that I need you, because I haven't spoken to my husband in a week. He's moved out to this property.
I guess he owns. I guess he inherited.
I think he found out through his ancestral papers or whatnot that this is his land, that his great grandfather, and we can see in a portrait that they found at the property that the great grandfather looks exactly like Chris Sarandon. So that's how you save money on casting another actor
with a convincing lookalike. Yeah, and like looking into like the family research and the history, they found that like his deceased relative was something of a twisted man of science in his era, who was like a scholar of the occult, and I
believe they call him a wizard or a magician,
a witch or something.
Yeah.
Now, was this made a movie in like the 1930s?
No, this is the only adaptation of this particular H.P. Lovecraft story.
Yeah,
and it's definitely one of the it's one of the more obscure stories that he's written, to the point that when I found this movie, I have a collection of H.P. Lovecraft stories at home that are all of the collected works of things that have been adapted for film and television. Sometimes it was like the great director Stuart Gordon had a great run of H.P. Lovecraft adaptations in the 80s with Re-Animator and From Beyond. Did they do
Mouth of Madness?
Mouth of Madness isn't directly based on an H.P. Lovecraft story. It's sort of just inspired by his vibe.
I see.
And of course, the thing that most modern day people associate with Lovecraft today is just Cthulhu. It's just the Cthulhu mythos of this big ancient squid-like creature who lives in the depths of the ocean, and when he awakes will bring the end of all times with him, which of course was tied to Lovecraft's real-life phobia of anything to do with the ocean, to the point that he could, if you gave him a plate of seafood, he would be all like, "Get that away from me." And of course, H.P. Lovecraft, a man of many faults. Which is a polite way of saying that he was deeply anti-Semitic and racist, in a way that you can see in his writing as well too. But we don't need to spend a ton of time on that. But my point is, I have this collection of H.P. Lovecraft stories. This story isn't in there, so it didn't even make the collection of other adaptations.
Somebody told me that in the 1930s they had made a movie called The Case of Charles Dexter Ward.
Well, it might have been an early black and white film, like a silent adaptation.
Oh, okay, all right. In 1963, Roger Corman filmed a loose adaptation called The Haunted Palace with Vincent Price and Lon Chaney Jr., which confusingly was advertised as Edgar Allan Poe's The Haunted Palace. Oh. So I guess that's a loose adaptation. I don't know. It's
just
like,
got caught up in
Sure, one of those guys.
Bureaucratic oversight there,
right? Yeah. So our Detective Marsh, takes the case and he drives out to Charles Dexter Ward's house in the country. He has a great scene at a gas station where he goes in and there's just a pool of blood on the floor, and the salty gas station owner says, "That's dog's blood you're standing in, wild dogs roaming around." And he says, "Where can I find this place?" And of course, great moment where the gas station owner looks off into the distance and just goes, "Just follow the smell of blood." And he gets there and he pulls out, we see he has multiple fake IDs.
As a PI should.
Which he cycles through until he gets his fire inspector cord. He's met at the door by a mysterious Asian gentleman.
A one-eyed Chinese man.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Who doesn't really factor too much into the plot, but I guess the villains of our piece kind of need some hired muscle. Just to kind of watch the door.
You'd think the hired muscle would at least get one scene where he does something significant, but he kind of just gets arrested.
They do explain that, he was like a gangster or whatever in China, and now he's here in North America. Yeah. One thing that I appreciate for all movies that do this is anything that can be explained has sort of a throwaway explanation, like who is this? Oh, it's a family lawyer friend of ours. When they name drop this, you guys have a carriage house? Yeah, we come from old money. There's something is at least established. But what I'm getting at is that a lot of the setup, a lot of the legwork for the setup is established. It's done. I appreciate it. When it gets into the science of how these corpses are being brought back to life, where it's not even given a bare bones explanation.
Well, yeah, but it's a thing that doesn't actually happen. So
no,
we're
it doesn't.
Making it up here. I mean, jumping ahead to the end, there's a Castlevania-esque potion that if you throw it on a skeleton, it comes to life and it starts attacking you like it's a Ray Harryhausen movie.
So in many cases, it's a very grounded in realism movie, and then in other times, it's just now we've got a walk and talking skeleton man.
This is real science, which unsurprisingly, kind of my favorite part of the movie, especially since the skeleton man comes out of a suitcase. Yeah. So Charles Dexter Ward is not keen to talk to this detective. He's being
very cagey. He's distant from his wife. He's aligned himself with this mysterious Dr. Ash character who's always seen walking around. He looks like Serpico.
Well, this character pops out of nowhere, and he's immediately seen wearing a hat, dark glasses, and a big fake beard. So as soon as this character pops up, it's all like, this will be someone, because people don't look like this unless there's a reveal coming.
You see that? I mean, as an actor, when you get the call and you're going to do you don't know any of this. You know what your thing is, your scenes are about, but you don't know the rest of it. And I'm watching it the other day. Then you told me about it. I mean, oh my God, so that happens, all that. Then I got confused. I mean, I think the thing is that what works, obviously, is go back to Final Destination. What they directed there, he shows, I think, the boy playing with a screw or something. And so for the next 5 or 10 minutes, this is going to be, more and more and more and more. And then the floor, and it's built up. But if you're, for me, as I say, I would have loved them to have, my death scene to have been much longer in the sense that we see it clearly. But then when it got to Alex, who was the family man in the country, and Gay, who is this mystique woman, I thought, I don't know anything about that. So it's strange. Are these movies made for one scene after another to keep you engrossed in it and what's going to happen next? Because Lovecraft, I mean, he was a writer. And it's like Conan Doyle. It's that they're the writers, so you love the story. But now one sees in movies, you've got to have like a domino effect.
Well, the tricky thing about adapting Lovecraft that a lot of people have rubbed up against is because he sort of introduced this idea of the cosmic horror, which was horror that was basically inexplainable, like, so,
which is such a cop out, but that's
sure,
yeah.
But like, it's one of those like writing devices where it's like our protagonist looked at the monster and his brain couldn't comprehend what he was seeing. So it's just like a lot of that. It's all like, I could describe to you what Cthulhu looks like, but like you wouldn't even understand, man.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have to take.
It's beyond all comprehension, and it's just like the scariest thing that you can imagine. Okay, imagine that times infinity, and even scarier than that.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a grand catch-all.
And then eventually, as time has gone on, people have been all like, big monster with squid tentacles on his face. It's all like, oh, okay. So you actually were able to explain that pretty easily. I was able to get there. But yeah. The one thing Final Destination Bloodlines did incredibly well was it got an entire audience of people to cheer for the death of a child. Because there was that little shit that really messed things up for everyone. But yes, so moving forward, so our detective is on the case now. He has an assistant, Lonnie, who's played by that one guy from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the guy who's always trying to sell concert tickets to people. Is the only other thing I recognize from him.
He's just running around doing some legwork for the detective. He's like an assistant.
There's a moment. Now, this is a moment that confused me, and I'm wondering if you were able to suss out this more than I was, Jameson. But there's a moment where the detective goes to see someone connected to the case, and the cops are already there, and this person has been turned into a bloody corpse or whatever. I took the movie back and I rewatched the scene again. Who is this character? This character comes out of nowhere. Is it someone we're meant to know?
Well, see, I wrote the character's name down. It was Mr. Fenner, because it's early enough in the movie. I don't know who our established characters. I don't know who our major players are going to be just yet. He's a neighbor who lives like nearby on that farmhouse. He has to live downwind from the smell that emanates from it. So he's come out and
But correct me if I'm wrong. The movie doesn't establish this character. This isn't like an actor or anything.
No, he doesn't really have a line. But he's connected to the case.
He doesn't have a line. He's just a pile of bones.
Yeah. But yes, he's named up by the wife who hires him. When she tells the detective, I don't want him hanging around with that Dr. Ash character. And Mr. Fenner can back up my claims because he's sort of tangentially involved.
So he's
asking too many questions. So he ends up being like this disintegrated pile of bones now. Like he's just like a pile of red goopy bones.
And the one detective, of course, is all like, they say it's probably an animal, but I don't buy it. So I'm like, oh yeah, you don't buy it? Like someone has been massacred in a way that no human body has ever been seen ever. And it's just, I also love how the detective is just very nonchalant. It's like, well, there he is. Yeah. It's like, oh, that's the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in my life.
You've seen it all on the job.
Thanks for that. Yeah. So the plot is thickening at this point in time, and they do another raid on Charles Dexter Ward's house, and he ends up getting taken to Dr. Waite's sanitarium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, because they go to his house there, and we finally actually get to have like a conversation with Charles, and he's talking in like very antiquated old English.
You must excuse my speech. I'm grown physical from this cursed river air. I suppose you have come to see what ails me. I trust you will find nothing to alarm you.
Charles, we have to get you to a doctor.
I'm already under the care of Dr. Ash. He is most able.
Where is this Dr. Ash? I'd like to meet him.
He had business to attend to.
He looks like a ghoul himself. He's got huge bags under his eyes. I love the bit where the detective says to his wife, like, does he ever normally talk like that? And like, no person in 1991.
That was why I fell in love with him.
Yes. Oh, my dear son, I must away, for I grow weary with the night. And it's like, yeah, that's man of her dreams right there.
So he's taken to the sanitarium, and we find out that he doesn't eat anything normal anymore. He can only eat raw meat and just straight animal blood. It's the only thing that he'll be able to get down. Mm-hmm. And he's making all of like these doom-laden proclamations about the end times, and my work must continue, and these sort of things. And so our team of the detective, the wife, and good old Lonnie,
always sticking around,
who's just quit smoking, so things are going to work out great for him.
quit smoking.
Lonnie, that's wonderful. Good for you. You've just done a wonderful thing for yourself. Tell me, is it difficult to do?
When I make up my mind to do something, I just do it.
That was the thing in the 90s. People were quitting smoking.
It was a trend. That was the trend of the big trend of 1991 was quitting smoking. Yes, but they go back to Charles Dexter Ward's property, and they find a capsule to the basement, and this is
Full of catacombs and everything.
Yeah. And
I'm surprised that that place wasn't police taped off.
I think it was well hidden because, of course, they're finding the good doctor is built on top of the house, and they're peeling back the wallpaper to find drawings of skulls underneath.
Yeah, runes and chemical symbols. So
that a wizard might have put there.
A wizard scientist.
And at one point in time, we flash back to his great grandfather, also played by Chris Sarandon, and we find out what he's been doing in this house, and we find out that there was a big flood that came through the town, and it washed out the good doctor's basement, and it washed away one of his experiments, which is sort of this half-finished man.
Yeah, that would make me kind of perk up a little bit after watching, because after about close to an hour, maybe this was at the hour mark.
It's a slow burn.
It is,
this movie.
But this is when
movie
it
takes a while. To
it really ramps up the no, you were right to be suspicious. This is some supernatural, spooky goings on, and just the practical effect of just seeing this
looked great.
This the effect obviously would have been sort of this plastic mold or whatever being built around an actor, and then maybe a sunken ground. But it's a completely rotting body that doesn't have all the parts to it. But there's a moving head and everything.
He's listed in the credits. I don't know if this is the character he's playing specifically, but I think this might be the great actor Deep Roy, who people might remember from Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He played all of the Oompa Loompas. But it's just this wriggling, half-formed creature who's just... He has a look on his face just like existence is pain. Someone please put me out of my misery. And of course, an angry mob forms and does away with the good doctor. But of course, he's not quite dead yet.
Yeah, he says. Later on, he says that he paid a coroner at the time good money to ensure that something special happens in the event of his death, where his remains are preserved, and you write to so and so members of his. Witch coven,
witch tribunal. Sure,
his friends back in England.
He's got some people working for him. Basically, is what's going on here.
So they decide upon themselves that we need to destroy his catacombs, his laboratory. I loved all the bits that took place in the underground catacombs. It just reminded me how important proper lighting is for establishing mood in a movie, and just seeing them go through these tiny corridors lit only by lantern light, so you never know what's coming around the corner. It was very effective.
But do you know where they shot that? Because somebody was saying to me the other day that downstairs at Riverview is just as scary in the basement.
That's what I saw. I didn't get to see the upstairs portion. But when I filmed there, I got to see the basement.
I didn't even know there was a basement. Are you saying that there's a catacomb, a crypt down there?
Or at the very least, a basement that could easily be turned into a crypt.
I hope they paid you well for filming for a place like that. That sounds genuinely haunted.
Well, I know that it's shown somewhere because I got a residual.
You got a residual for this year.
It's probably from us watching the
It's getting a bit of a cult following. It just got a nice re-cleaned up DVD release from Vinegar Syndrome. So it's getting a bit. I think on the strength of Dan O'Bannon's name. Who knows? This may sort of build in cult following as the years go on. So you probably got a residual from that. But and this whole section feels very video gamey, where the Silent Hill creatures are coming out of nowhere and they're attacking them. Poor Lonnie gets dragged down a well. No real attempt is made to save him.
No,
they just all he's gone. It's all really he just fell down a hole.
There's no time to save him.
We have to blow this place up.
I'm not quite dead yet.
But there is something about this genre of movie, 91. Anyway, early days compared to what you can do today. A friend of mine was showing me And we watched half a dozen. He lives in New York, but he was staying with me for a while. And he's watching the whole lot of Twilight Zones.
Yeah.
And you know, without the money, because now, even Final Destination, I know what it was, budget 60 million or so, in Mission Impossible 300 million. But when you look at things like Twilight Zone and the Resurrected, the budget wouldn't have been astronomical. So, you know, you're going to find these things. But it fascinates because the Twilight Zone I was looking at, you go, wow, it is so interesting. It's gripping and they do get me. It brings me in.
You have to lean in more towards the writing, the idea itself, and the presentation, like how you do present it to the audiences. And Kaz and I are huge fans of any project that'll have good practical special effects and that can be shot very well, because it does remind you that filmmaking is a craft, and there's like many, many talented artists behind the camera that put together these rubber suits. And there's ways that they have to be shot well and lit in a certain way to convey this idea with what, at the time were probably cutting edge. And you don't have to rely on a team of visual artists or graphical artists. So yeah, my hat goes off to practical effects team on this. Yeah.
And I think you said it best, this is a dark scene. This is like a nighttime scene. And, we talk about a lot of studios don't seem to know how to film night scenes anymore. They're just completely washed out and dark because it's more realistic this way. But this is a great example of you saying it's like you can't see a lot of what's going on here, but it's purposeful.
Yeah.
The flashlight is dipping in and out. It's running out of battery. They have to keep lighting matches from a matchbook.
Yeah.
So it's very dark and you're not seeing a lot, but that's the purpose.
Yeah.
That was what they were going for.
It's intentionally pitch black. You don't know what's lurking in the shadows. Everything's closed off. And the one source of light, the one bit of defense that you might have in these situations is ever dwindling.
Well, I mean, those my little scenes at the beginning of the movie, the lighting, it's dark. And I thought, I was really hidden in the shadows then. Then you move up. But when you see it, you go, that's the atmosphere that the director and the DOP wanted, and the lighting guy, that's what they wanted, that. And it's fascinating because if I'd have done the scenes in the sanatorium in bright light, zilch, there's no tension, there's nothing there. It's very clever. And as I say, with Dan, he'd got me to walk along the corridor with the windows open. And you go, well, why are the windows open? You don't question that because you've got curtains, net curtains flowing. You've got rain coming in, and then you've got explosions. So it's technically the whole thing. You've got a human being walking back, and you're going just for the technicality.
And if you're capturing an actual rainy, stormy Vancouver evening, that's a special effect in its own that you could utilize. All you just need to keep a window
instant
open.
production value. Just wait for the fall.
So he happens to have a couple of pocket bombs on him.
Yeah.
So he ends up blowing up Charles Dexter Ward's
and
property.
all of his failed experiment monsters there.
He takes his wife, Charles Dexter Ward's wife, back to a hospital because she, of course, has fainted from the shock.
He gives her a kiss on the forehead, which I think was a little presumptuous on his part. She's still a married woman.
They're seeding the idea that there is meant to be a romance between the two of them, and there is, I believe, there's like a dream sequence where
there's so many dreams
where they kiss, but they
drink every time there's a flashback sequence in this movie.
But they never make it explicit. The interesting button for the wife character is when he leaves her at the hospital, an orderly says, "Do you realize she's pregnant?" Which is a plot point that is never carried forward. We don't know who the father is. We assume it's some sort of devilish chicanery that we have to imagine.
Maybe that's why she really wants to find the husband. You're gonna be a daddy.
I mean,
or she's worried he's gonna step out.
It feels like there was a love scene cut between the detective and her, and this is maybe like left over from that plot thread. But this is the last we see of this character, so it kind of comes to nothing.
No wrap up there.
And then our detective.
But from what I understand, Lovecraft had a real hard time writing women. So
yeah, there was lots of implications about his own
style. I don't think he was a repressed gay man. I think he just didn't really like people all that much.
By his own standards,
Sure.
it's like, a woman becomes pregnant, her life is over.
That's it. That's the end. And
her story has concluded.
That's the one thing that they carried over from the novel. Yes.
Yeah.
So the detective goes back to the sanitarium. He's figured it out. He goes up to Charles Dexter Ward and says,
he figured out what I figured out in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, pretty easy to discern.
I've seen horror movies before.
You are the old. You are the man from the past. You are Chris Sarandon from several centuries ago. And
you were resurrected.
Yes, Charles Dexter Ward found a way to bring you back, and as a result, you killed him, and you put his skeleton in a suitcase, and it's right over there.
Whenever you need to walk around in public and you need to be together, you are the mysterious Dr. Ash.
Absolutely, yes.
You're the one dressed as Serpico.
In that flawless fake beard that you have going on there. And Chris Sarandon's all like, yes, you figured it out, but you're too late to stop me because no one will ever believe you, because who would believe such a story? And
also, apparently, I have super strength.
Yes, apparently I could have gotten out of this straitjacket anytime I wanted to. So he starts attacking the detective, and then somewhat apropos of nothing, the detective pulls out a vial of magic potion that I guess he just grabbed from the earlier scene.
Yeah,
I
didn't
remember him getting this.
How did he know that was going to be the right thing? I don't quite know.
And how did he know the right thing to do would be to pour it on the skeleton of Charles Dexter Ward,
which is conveniently located in a suitcase that he brought along with
which
him.
then comes to life and attacks his great-great-grandfather, and they disappear in a cosmic puff of smoke and blood and gore, and I love it anytime a skeleton comes to life. It makes me think of Scary Movie 2.
Yeah,
where
just Jason and the Argonauts.
But Jason and the Argonauts, but just particularly, it's like the thing that they call out in Scary Movie 2, also starring Tim Curry, is there's a skeleton running after them and they're all screaming, and then Regina Hall just goes like, "This is a skeleton! This is bones!" And then they rearrange the bones, and it's all like, yeah, what's a skeleton gonna do? You can push that over.
Frankly, what is a skeleton going to do? Because bones don't move themselves. It's the muscle fiber and the tendons that make.
But when the devil is involved, all things
That's
are.
right. I forgot
all
this
all
is
things
black
are
magic and science.
With Satan.
Yeah.
Cosmic
power.
And then we end where we begin with a question mark of what happened with the strange case of Charles Dexter Ward. That was the most concise plot synopsis we've ever gone through, because we are on rented time here, and we are coming to the end of our episode.
I wanted to say that, like, he does mention that I know the truth of what happened. It was the guy who was brought back to life through black magic and science. But I'm going to tell the world that no, Charles just escaped from the asylum, and that's what I'm going to tell his wife.
There was nothing I could do for Lottie or the orderly. But there was something I could do for Claire. I made it look like Charles had escaped. I wanted to spare her the truth.
What a great comfort to her, knowing that, like, oh yeah, my husband went crazy and he started reanimating corpses, which I've seen, and now he's like loose in the world somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the truth will be a hard pill to swallow, but I think this is going to make her a little more paranoid.
No, after the whole resurrecting corpses thing, you might as well just tell her it's all like, no, they're gone. They're gone. They turned into red mist. You don't have to worry about it anymore. They melted. Was there anything you noted about your watch of the movie, Bernard, that you really wanted to highlight, really wanted to point out?
No, I mean, it was so involved. The story is so involved, and watching it again, I think, was I in this?
You're in it wonderfully.
You know, I mean, it goes on to incredible length. What you guys have just described, detail by detail. I mean, wow.
That's what we do.
We tend to do that a little bit longer.
We ruin movies. That's what this podcast is about.
But also, it's based on a book that was published like 100 years ago.
Yeah, so you should have read this.
But I mean, that's fascinating because the way you've described it, it's so full of stuff. I would love to have talked to the director and the writer and said, okay, I mean, did you keep the enthusiasm? Because I'm in the early scenes, and so we know the lighting, we know this and that, and they've got to can keep that going. And there's no really one scene that just is two people sitting at a table. There's action, there's lighting, there's effects. So it becomes a whole complex. And it's so easy to get out of control for a director, I would think, with a movie so full of stuff, coming from literature as well, so full of stuff. But I will go, because I kept it, when you sent it, I kept the email you said, I'm going to watch it again.
Yes, this movie is impossible to stream right now, but our source was the ever reliable Internet Archive. So if you're listening at home and you want to watch this movie, that's where you can find it right now. I also imagine, like I said, it has been released on DVD recently, so you can also purchase it there. But yes, it's as apropos of the movies that we cover on this podcast, not easy to track this one down.
No, well, exactly, because I thought it had died. I thought it never had an opening.
Yeah.
Because, 1991, I'm still very new to camera work. I mean, good roles. And somebody once said to me, oh, it was shown somewhere in California or somewhere. I said, oh, it's still like this. But it's now called The Resurrected, because I think I was contracted to be in the case of Charles Dexter.
Sure. Also a good title that they could have stuck with, frankly.
But then, like, someone on marketing said, we focus group this and this tested better.
People love resurrections. Mm-hmm. Yeah, audiences are all about things coming back.
And I have to say that for me, with all the action, and in a way it's like Final Destination, what we as actors try and be as real as possible. And whether I was in that, but Chris was amazing, simply because of that scene where he's sitting in the bed, looking down, and I say, for Christ's sake, look at me, I'm talking to you. And he looked at me, and I did the sort of double take. Pity, I don't know, I wish they'd have kept it, because it scared the shit out of me because of what he did. And he was, they didn't use prop, the prop was for real. He was buckled up.
Right.
And I'm sure that was his choice, because he had to do that. To make a movie like that for an actor, to go through all that, I would think what was going on in his mind as an actor, it's rather like the guy who's in Succession, who's the method actor.
Jeremy Strong? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Brian Cox on a TV show saying, Jeremy Strong, and he was being polite, but Jeremy Strong was a pain in the arse.
Yeah, Brian Cox has some irascible opinions about most
as
of
he
his,
should,
yes.
because he's a delightful man.
He said he'll just be like Daniel Day-Lewis. Now, Daniel Day-Lewis is coming back, I gather, into movies, but Daniel Day-Lewis and then when you see the finished result that Daniel Day-Lewis or Jeremy Strong does, it's fantastic. So for me to be on that movie, a small part that I was at the top with Chris in his acting, that scene, he was tremendous. He was absolutely tremendous. He was giving everything. And I think now, listening to the way you've described the movie, wow, how do you go through that? What am I going to do the next day?
Well, you would know better than us.
Yeah, you were there, man.
You have been in far more movies than either of us have. So you are the expert on here. But Bernard, we're at the tail end of things here, and we always like to ask the question at the end of every episode. Does this movie have a certain something, or is it a whole lot of nothing? What is your final take on The Resurrected?
I'm not an actor that says, oh yeah, I did that, but I bought a new sweater, or I bought
a whole sweater. Wow.
It's like the Michael Caine quote that he said, like, have you seen Jaws 4, the movie you're in? No, but I saw the house that it got me.
But for me, and that was the fun of being in it, of being in a horror movie, but also the genius at the time of the director and the effects, how a good director, how good lighting and a good DOP do that. I mean, not to change something, but I remember doing a movie called Double Jeopardy.
Yes, with Ashley Joe, which we weren't able to talk about, but yes, you were in Double Jeopardy.
There was a day we were shooting, And she'd say, no, it's too hot. No, I've got to make a phone call. No, I've got to do this. And this went on like all through the morning. And I went up to the DOP, who was, because Bruce Beresford was a brilliant Australian director, and his DOP was Australian, they'd worked before. And I said to him, I think his name was Peter, I said, Peter, how do you deal with Ashley? I mean, we could do this now. No problem, but
we got to be careful because we don't want Ashley Judd to get litigious against us.
What Peter said, he said, no, that's fine. He said, because Ashley Judd cannot take a bad photo. And it's like Marilyn Monroe used to take something like 50 takes for some but they cannot. You do it. And
like Catherine Zeta-Jones. Yeah. The camera loves them.
And I saw Double Jeopardy. It was on Showcase again the other night. And I thought, God, she is good. She is so real because she's playing not an improbable situation, but a very extraordinary, because it became a feminist cult movie. Somebody said to me,
and it confused people for many years about what Double Jeopardy actually is. You can't actually kill your husband if you've been gone to jail. You will go to jail if you killed someone.
If you'd already done it. And I'd heard at one point it brought in $500 million.
It was a successful movie. She was the queen of late 90s thrillers at the time.
And now she's gone back to litigation, I think,
well, she unfortunately is one of the key figures of the Me Too movement, and but that's just a can of worms we don't have time to get into right now, Bernard. But Jameson, final thoughts on the Resurrected.
I'll keep this quick because I think we're over. I think this is a very well-made horror movie. I have a few issues with some minor pacing issues, but other than that, in the 6 years that we've been doing this podcast, guys, we finally got to see an actually scary movie on Halloween. Sure. I appreciate that.
The only one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I always have like a little soft spot in my heart for any film that's clearly filmed in around Vancouver. That scene where he's ordering the hot dogs, I recognize that restaurant out in front of Shading Island in my hometown of Steveston. So this is a recommend from Jameson.
All right, yeah, and I'll throw it with a certain something as well. Yeah, definitely check it out. Bernard Cuffling, thank you so much for coming and just like sharing your incredible career and your incredible stories. I do want to briefly throw a plug your way. You are in a movie that will be released, I think, fairly soon, that was made by a couple of buddies of mine. It's the film Hunting Matthew Nichols. A film that I'm still not certain how I'm able to talk about it because it has a bit of a twist, but that is making its round in the Canadian film circuit right now. I don't know how much of a wide release it's going to get, but Markian, Ryan McDonald, Sean Oliver, past guest Daniel Clout has a role in that. That's going to be very exciting. I'm excited to see that. So you've got that coming up. You were talking to us about your yacht project. Which we can, I believe it's called Yacht Club. People should be able to look out for that. And if you haven't yet, watch Final Destination Bloodlines. It's one of the best horror movies released this year. It's been a fantastic year for horror movies, and that's one of them. And you can watch this delightful man get turned into a red paste, and it's just absolutely the best. Bernard, thank you for being with us.
Yes, thank you so much for taking the time. This was wonderful. This is fascinating. Yeah.
And that was The Resurrected, directed by Dan O'Bannon. If you've enjoyed this episode, please check out our back catalog of episodes. If you go further back into the catalog, you will notice that the show is called The Fuck Is This? Don't worry about it. It's the same show. It's just Jameson, me, and another person. We're just having fun. We're just having a laugh.
Or it's just the two of us.
But the thing that separates us from the other podcasts out there is we have fun with it. We'd like to thank Eddie Lamb for his fantastic theme music. We'd like to thank Simon Max and the good folks at Compound Studios
for having us.
Allowing us to use your equipment today for this very special episode. You can follow us on the social media. We are on Facebook and Instagram. You can follow me on Letterboxd. I'm Kaz Lesgard.
You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Uptown Slim Jim, where I make my animated films. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can get the visual content or whatever. And I don't really have a sign off for this episode because do you have a memorable quote you remember from this?
Don't go to Riverview on a November evening when it's raining.
I didn't write one down. Okay. What's the street value of wizard bones?
What?
That's a line that's mentioned in your movie, sir.
What's the street value of wizard's bones?
And you know what? They never tell us.
They never do.
You know,
So
if you know the street value of wizard bones, write into